Get free tech advice for your business from O2 Gurus. Search O2 Business for more. Hey guys, welcome to Btekt. It's Basil here, and if you've been watching the channel, you'll know I've been running some crazy comparisons with the Xperia Z5s. I have all these phones with me. I thought what better to do than a screen comparison. Now I'm going to run through all the phones. We've got the Z3 Compact, the Z5, the Z3 Plus, the Z3, the Huawei Mate S, the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge, the Z5 Compact, the iPhone 6 One M9, the iPhone 6 Plus, the Nexus 6, the LG G4, and the Motorola Moto X Play, in that order. Now, as far as resolutions go, most of these phones are full HD. You've got 720p screens in the Sony Xperia Compact, the Z3, and in the Z5. You've also got a weird resolution for the iPhone, but it results in a similar kind of pixel density to 720p. Full HD screens sit in the HTC One M9, all three of the Sony flagship phones, as well as Motorola Moto X Play. The Full HD iPhone 6 Plus is 5.5 inches, as is the 5.5 inch Huawei Mate S. But all the remaining phones are Quad HD, and to clarify, that's the Nexus 9, the LG G4, and the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge. Now, as far as screen technologies go, we've got predominantly IPS or LCD displays. That's on everything except for the Huawei Mate S, which has an AMOLED screen, as does the Samsung Galaxy S6 and the Nexus 9. Ultimately, all of these are really top-end displays, but how do they stack up in a side-by-side? All of them are on full brightness, it is worth me saying. The first thing I can do is I can talk about reds. I'm standing on top of it. You should be able to see something similar, gauging by where the camera is positioned. Now, you probably won't be able to see the HTC One M9 too easily. When I talk about that, I'm kind of going to shimmy it up a little bit, and when I talk about the Huawei, I'm going to shimmy that down. The reason I'm going to start talking about reds is because reds often tend to look orange, or they're sometimes a little bit too deep. Now, the deepest reds come from the Xperia Z3 Compact, the Z3 Plus, as well as the LG G4. They've got really nice deep kind of burgundy reds. The most orangey reds come from the Huawei and Samsung devices, so clearly that might be something to do with AMOLEDs, but the iPhone displays are also quite orangey as far as the reds go. And I'd say my favorite reds here were, this is subjective, the Xperia Z3 Plus and the Z5 Compact, just hovering over. The reason for that is the fact that they look, well, the most red, the least orangey, and that is purely gauging by my eyes. Now, red is a very subjective thing, white less so, but still subjective. Now, all of these whites displayed in the 100% white boxes across all of them are going to be slightly tinted, because certain manufacturers calibrate their screens cooler. For example, the Sony Xperia Z3 Compact is a very cool screen. iPhones tend to be pretty cool, but not super cool, whereas you've got warmer screens in the Nexus 9, for example, and AMOLEDs with the whites head-on viewing can be a little bit warmer. And generally, I'd say the best whites come from the iPhone, the HTC One M9. They've got quite similar whites, veering towards the cooler side, as well as the Sony Xperia Z5 Compact. Interestingly, the Z5 and Compact have slightly different kind of calibration. The Z5 seems to be calibrated slightly warmer than the Z5 Compact. More akin to, well, it seems more brighter. The whites just seem whiter. I'd say the Nexus 6 from Motorola has the weakest whites because it's just got the least accuracy there. The Moto X Play, I bring it into frame, looks absolutely stunning. The whites are really, really on point. And generally speaking, most of the Sony phones, the Z3 and Z3 Plus, tend to lean towards slightly too cool hues for my tastes. Moving away from whites and onto the flip side, it's blacks, and it's all about deep, dark blacks. Deepest, darkest blacks are going to come in the form of AMOLED panels like the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge and the Huawei and Nexus devices. Reason for that, AMOLEDs don't emit much light when they produce black tones. The Xperia Z3 and in fact all the Z3 lineup and Z5 as well produce a kind of white black, so it's a like pretty clearly black, backlit black. Interestingly, the Z5 Compact has a better kind of calibration for black than the Z3, so there have been clear improvements to the 720p display on the Z5 Compact, even if it is the same resolution. As far as LCDs go, LCDs have a tougher time of producing deep dark blacks, but the LG head-on in this lighting looks like it's doing a pretty decent job, as too did the iPhones, like I said, the Z5 Compact and the HTC One M9. Away from blacks in terms of how deep they are and onto blacks in terms of the tonal variation, and you can see if I bring the iPhone 6 Plus into frame, on the bottom chart you've got gradient of black to white. This is 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, right up to 12%, and then you have up to 100%, and that's percent white. So the reason we've got that is to show us exactly what point you can make out the variation between the 1% and the 2% or the 3%. With most of these phones, it's pretty clear that you can make out between 1 and 2%. You kind of want to make out somewhere between 2-3% or so. The reason you don't necessarily always want to see really clearly between 1 and 2% is because then the image will start to look a little bit bright. It won't look quite as high contrasty in the dark atmospheric scenes, but at the same time, if it is brighter, then it will improve outdoor viewing. So you kind of catch 22 depending on what kind of stuff you're watching. A lot of these manufacturers, Sony, Samsung, lets you customize a lot of this stuff, and Samsung has an adaptive display that copes with different screen uses and adjusts accordingly. So what do I see? Most of these tend to produce a good degree of differentiation between 1 and 2%. I'd say the Huawei Mate S, probably bringing that into frame, has the most kind of similar blacks between 1 and 8%, and that's from kind of 4% down good, but any higher and you're kind of looking at too high a contrast scene, and so it's going to be a pleasing screen to watch when you're watching kind of like decently lit movies, but in low lit movies it's just going to be blobs of black in a lot of places. The Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge with its AMOLED screen actually does a much better job of differentiating blacks across tonal ranges, and if we move the Nexus into frame, as does the Nexus seems to be keeping everything nice and separate in the low ends. Ultimately, me personally, that's what I prefer. As far as the LCD panels go, the iPhones are generally pretty safe bets here. They produce a good balance of depth in their blacks, and their tonal ranges are still quite easily identifiable. I would say that the Xperia Z5, bringing that in, sits around where the iPhone does. Like I said, as far as the whites go, it's good, but the blacks aren't quite as deep, and as a result there's more noticeable tonal differentiation between the actual increments on the black chart. How about the Z5 Compact? Now, I did a comparison with this and the Z3 Compact and the iPhone, and I was mightily impressed with this. And this actually, has much deeper blacks than the Z5, interestingly enough. So despite being a smaller screen, it actually produces, for me personally, a superior screen experience in many ways. I'm not going to go into every single aspect on every single phone, but I think it's safe to say if you like punchy, vibrant colors and deep dark blacks, go for AMOLEDs. The sharpest of all the AMOLEDs here is definitely going to be the Samsung Galaxy S6 with its Quad HD display, and in fact that display is the highest pure quality as well. The Huawei Mate S is going to have very dramatic kind of performance as far as the display goes. That's going to come down to the saturated colors and the high contrast. It does have beautifully deep blacks. As far as the LCD screens go, the LG G4 isn't going to be quite as bright as some of the others, but it's going to produce really decent colors, and in addition you've got good depth of blacks there. The Sony flagships, the Z3, the Z3 Plus and the Z5 don't actually have as deep blacks as other displays. They do produce good levels of sharpness at 400 and 424 pixels per inch, I think it is, full HD at 5.2 inches, and the saturation levels are really on point too with a tri-luminous screen tech. As far as the HTC One M9 goes, really solid performer. I wouldn't say it wins out in anything actually, but I would say for the LCDs, it's a very, very safe, solid bet. It's, in my opinion, as far as brightness goes, better than the LG G4, and I'd say the surprise knockout here in terms of, well, two surprise knockouts would be the Motorola Moto X Play and the Xperia Z5 Compact. The Moto X Play, for a not flagship device, really does compete with the big boys, even though it packs that 270 odd pound price tag. So that has been my bonkers mammoth screen comparison between all of these devices. If you enjoyed the video, then click that thumbs up button. If you like Btekt in general, subscribe. That's how you're going to stay on top of everything we do. Thanks for watching. Micro SD and a micro SIM slot. So this is going to be expandable by 200 gigabytes, which is mightily impressive. 32 gig onboard memory, 3.5mm headphone jack. This is going to also be compatible with a set of headphones that Sony is going to be releasing, which allows for both digital noise cancellation and high resolution audio, all at the same time. Around the back, it's a new camera sensor, 23 megapixels. What's really awesome about this is that it combines a new focus system with a range of other things to make it a